This market has just seen quite a large crash right here, from a high of 44.7 down to a low right here of $40,000 pretty much. Bitcoin has dropped very, very quickly, and it's really got a lot of people concerned yet again. One of the things that I like to remind you guys about in downtrends, right, is that, we can slowly grind our way up, but when we're in a downtrend, we can lose a lot of that progress really, really quickly. Ladies and gents, I think that's really important to keep in mind. A lot of people forget about this, but if you look at this little area right here, see when Bitcoin dropped down to 45 and then over here and then managed to rally up to 52. Like, Bitcoin was messing about, not really doing anything in particular for a whole 32 days, and then bam, within the space of like 2-3 days, we dropped down a key level. Very, very important. A lot of people are wondering right now, is Bitcoin getting ready to do the same thing again? Here's the thing, right? And we could even be like, people are even bringing price targets of like $20,000 into the mix, and I'm going to show you exactly why. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen even now. I hope it happens. It would be absolutely amazing, but realistically I don't think we're going to get that lucky. But let me talk about that a little bit later on. If you guys are excited for this one and you appreciate all the content recently, do me a favor and smash up the likes. I know some of you were worried about why I haven't made a video recently, but it's literally just because the market wasn't moving. But here we are, we're back in business. The good news in this range, in my opinion, is that Bitcoin has a phenomenal area of support right here at 40k. Now, what I don't like is that it almost looks to me as though we've plunged through this area a little bit too quickly, but I just want to draw your attention to what happened right here. See, when Bitcoin fell into this range back in September 2021, it took quite a few hits of this support area until Bitcoin eventually rocketed higher. I think that's really important, right? I mean, this is a support area which Bitcoin can test and test and test and still find a reliable bit of support from it. One of the reasons that I'm actually fairly optimistic about this, in terms of finding a bounce here, is that we didn't really find any resistance on the way up, so that's showing a lot of strength, way more strength than I thought this trend would have just at that moment. And obviously now coming back down to backtest this area, still a good sign. We're in a small bounce right now. It's nothing crazy. It really doesn't tell us much. The key thing that I'd be looking for is being able to get out of this range and back above 42 ASAP, as soon as possible. The longer we spend down in the lows around here, the worse it's going to get, in my opinion. And I think one of the key points to keep in mind right now with this trend at the moment is that if we do lose the 40k level, we could be looking at coming down to that mid 38k range, where Bitcoin was previously finding a little bit of resistance towards the end of January last month. We could be looking at coming back down to find support here. Now, my problem with this, and I've warned you guys about this before to those of you who are subscribed, is that if we do find support off this level and start moving back up, I would anticipate that this area will again turn into resistance. Now, last time it was resistance, it didn't really stop Bitcoin. So is it going to be the same case now? I don't think so. I honestly think that we just got lucky at this point. And the other thing to keep in mind is that we formed such a nice rally. One of the key things I was telling you guys about when everyone and their nan was getting excited while Bitcoin was up here and down around these kind of price areas, Four Flies was here warning you guys that nothing has actually really changed, right? One of the key points that I wanted you guys to keep in mind with this trend is that we didn't actually substantially, well, at all technically, close anything higher than our previous high in this trend. So we haven't done anything super impressive by that metric. And seeing that we're up by about 38% from this low to this high, 39%, that also isn't very impressive in my opinion, because we've already dropped by so much, right? So to rise up by 39%, don't get me wrong, phenomenal gain, very, very nice indeed. It's just not that impressive when you consider how strong the sell-off has been. Like, of course we're getting a 38% move to the fucking upside. The market's dropped down to shit. Like, it's just natural. Like, when you have such an aggressive sell-off, getting a massive pump up isn't necessarily that impressive. So look, I'm just trying to lay out the facts on the table, right? If you're getting scared, you know the deal right now. I mean, this market is not for you. If this kind of video upsets you, if it makes you feel fearful, if it makes you feel doubtful, if it makes you scared of what you're doing, you're not in the right place. You don't have the balls for this space if this kind of thing upsets you. And you know the deal. If you're actually sitting here and kind of thinking, okay, shit, let me take in some of these ideas, this is for you. This is what this YouTube channel is all about. See, the reality of trading is pretty brutal. People are being reminded of that right now. The single biggest candle that we've had since this pump, which was at the very beginning of this month, we're going back 13 days, 2 weeks now, the single biggest candle since that pump is this sell-off that we're seeing right now, from a high of, like I said, 44 down to the low 40k range. So I just want you guys to keep that in mind at the moment as we go along in this video. We've got a lot more to cover, but let's just carry on with the short-term analysis just for the minute. You know, one of the key things that I want to take a look at in this video is just zooming in again, taking a look at where our key indicators are. So 4-hour Ichimoku cloud, beautiful 4-hour Ichimoku cloud right here. We've already bounced off it as we were predicting on the YouTube channel, and we're now penetrating it quite deep, but we've got support all the way down to the bottom with this red line. Now realistically, I think if we fall out of this green box, we're going to fall to the next one. I don't think the cloud is going to help us anymore, but it is a good sign showing us that, look, if there's any point where the price can penetrate into support and then get a bounce up, it's right now. That's not saying we're gonna get it, guys. This is these are two different things. What I'm saying here is that if there's any point where the price has a good chance of falling into support and finding great support and rocketing up, it's right now. Doesn't mean we're going to take the chance, right? But if we do, it's obviously going to be very obvious in hindsight. Like I said, I think it's a little bit too early for this support area to break, but we are right at the bottom of it right now. We're not, generally speaking, in a good place right now, in my opinion. And one of the key reasons for that, again, is just because this sell-off has been very quick. A fairly extreme sell-off, right? I mean, we haven't really paused with the sell-off very much at all. Pretty much all just starting today. So I think this is going to be shocking a few people. You know, if we look at the fear and greed index as well, let's go ahead and refresh this. You know, close to neutral territory. Hopefully when this updates in just 1 hour, we're going to have a pretty good idea of where the market is sitting in terms of sentiment. But I would expect that it's certainly going to be dropping a little bit more into firm, fearful territory as well, which can definitely be something quite interesting in this market, in my opinion. Now, if we do end up getting a bounce back up, well, like I said, one of the key levels that I want to see Bitcoin reclaim is going to be that 42k psychological area. If we're able to get above that level, I'm going to be happy with the market again. I would then be looking at challenging the 45k area, which we've already challenged but not gotten any closes on the daily time frame. This is the 1 hour. We haven't gotten any closes on the daily time frame above that level, so that is very important to me. As soon as we get a close basically above this yellow line on the daily chart, that is where I'm going to, and I've been saying this for a while, that is where I'm really going to start believing that this thing is legit. Because like I said, anything up until this point, even pumping up by 40%, even if Bitcoin doubles, it's really not that impressive. And again, I just want to, like, I know that some people are having difficulty digesting that idea right now, so I'm going to show you something else that is irrefutable. You cannot argue it. It's right here. Take a look at this. So first of all, how is this doing? Yeah, pretty nice. I'm not going to talk about this one right now. I don't know, did I make a video on this? I'm not sure if I did I think I did make a video on this. Anyway, what I want to show you, let's just go onto the BLX chart so I don't get distracted, is right here. Bitcoin sets its all-time high at $20,000 in 2017, and it suffers a really big crash. It's not as big as what we saw just now, although I think it's close. It's not that big. This was a minus 70% crash for Bitcoin to get from its all-time high down within about 50 days to 5.8k. Very low price right here. But look at the reaction rally. This proves my point perfectly. You know, look at the reaction rally that we formed on our first leg. We're up by 99%. Ladies and gents, the price doubled in that time, and we were still in a bear market, right? Anyone who is saying that the price recovered, by the way, including me, because I was also wrong about this, anyone saying that the price has meaningfully recovered from this sell-off at this point was full of shit. They're either full of shit or an idiot. I was definitely an idiot back then. You know, this is like rising up by plus 100% after you've already lost so much value isn't alone a good thing. Like, it's an absence of bad, right? Like, it's good that we're not dropping lower. It's good that we're getting some sort of reaction rally, but it's not enough to simply be recovering by large percentage amounts when you've already dropped so much in value. It's just not going to sustain the market higher. That's what I wanted to warn you guys about right here. And by the way, this is a classic sign with Bitcoin. Just want to point this out to you, right? Look at this. Bitcoin goes from, you know, $14,000 down to a low of $9,000, right? Let's measure this drop. Fairly large, 35% drop. This is definitely very significant. Look at the reaction rally Bitcoin forms. 36% move up. It's basically the same percentage lost as gained, although obviously, you know, when you gain, you always end up lower because losing is a very harmful thing. It's just how math works. So, we can form equally strong rallies in terms of percentage moves, but, you'd still be in a bad place. Again, it's just things that I want to keep on your radar. I'm not saying that we're going to drop. I'm just saying that these are the facts that are still weighing in on this market right now, and you would be a fool if you weren't paying attention to them just at the moment, because you better believe, ladies and gents, that right now is not a time where Bitcoin looks sexy. There's a lot of uncertainty right now, and when there's a lot of uncertainty in the space, that means that obviously there's going to be a little bit of an absence of demand and potentially a surplus of supply, and generally that's going to mean that markets are dropping. We've got the we've got one of the things that I found funny is that Russia, but I don't know what actually is going on, obviously, because the media is telling a shitload of lies, but Russia has potentially withdrawn some of its troops and from the Ukrainian border, and then what was it, the Fed emergency meeting didn't announce any interest rate hikes or anything like that, so everyone was getting very excited while Bitcoin was up here, but we're still dropping. And this is a very, very key example of how these pieces of news don't actually matter, right? What only matters is the psychological state of the market, and it's still weak. Even if we're moving up, it's still weak. It's fragile. It's very fragile. And the reason that it's fragile, ladies and gents, the reason that it's fragile in this market right now is purely because people are so scarred from what's happened already. And that's why we see these very fast sell-offs. So let's talk about the really ugly side now. Again, I must preface this by saying, I don't think this is going to happen, but it's worth taking a look at, because I also didn't think that we'd be dropping down to 33k when Bitcoin was setting its brand new all-time high, and that's why it's worth considering all possibilities at all times. Here's the thing, right? There are these CME gaps, and Bitcoin actually managed to form one right here, between 40,000. This is the gap I was talking about earlier. Those of you who are subscribed will remember this. Managed to fill this gap right here. Generally, what happens, right? For those of you who don't know, CME means Chicago Mercantile Exchange. This is this is one of the way that, how do I say, like the more conventional, very large traders, for example, from the United States, can buy Bitcoin without actually buying Bitcoin. They can buy paper Bitcoins, and so very, very popular among the generally more white collar normal traders that you would have seen in the movies or whatever. And these markets, they only trade on weekdays, so Monday to Friday, 9 to 6, something like that. When they stop trading and Bitcoin moves, the price ends up opening at different levels, so we form a gap. Now here's the thing, most of these gaps end up getting filled. Not all, but most. There was a gap right here, by the way, which wasn't filled for a long time. We filled it on this move down. So this gap had been playing in the market from July all the way up until January, so that's about a 5-month, 6-month time span where we didn't actually fill a gap, so they don't necessarily need to be filled. Here's the thing, we had a gap right here, we filled it. Let's take a look at where some of the other gaps are. There's another gap right here, kind of between 24 to 26, and there's another gap, bear with me while I find it. I cannot find it. It is it here? Yep, this is the gap. This is the other gap right here. A little bit hard to believe it's all the way down here. It's from 18k to 19k. Bitcoin gapped up and didn't fill that price range. So these are two potential targets that people are going to be looking at in the market. Again, I'm not saying that we're going to go there, but these gaps, they have a pretty high likelihood of being filled. There's actually not very many gaps that haven't been filled. There is another one down at 9k, by the way, right over here. Those of you who've been around on this channel for a while will remember that I was talking about this way back in 2020. Obviously, I think the likelihood of any of these gaps being filled is fairly low, because I don't expect we're going to be plummeting below $30,000 at any point. However, it's still, again, an interesting thing to be considering, because a lot of people are going to be thinking doom and gloom like this right now, especially if the dump intensifies. That is something that I want you guys to keep in mind, right? When the market was moving up, I was preaching caution this whole time. Those of you who've been watching this channel regularly are going to remember this very, very well. But now that the market is has managed to rise up a little bit, again, my position changed to when it rised up, my position changed to, look, here's the time where we'd be a little bit more cautious. Now is where I'm just reminding you guys, like, look, that fear can come back into the market really quickly. Doesn't mean it will, but it certainly can. And if it does, it could take us very low very quickly. I am talking about support in the 38k range, but realistically, it's not a lot of support, especially if 40k breaks. I'm not optimistic about 38. That's why I said, even if we get a bounce here, I would expect resistance, and then we end up dropping down even lower, purely because this is a very strong area of support in my opinion, and this is not. And so if we fail a strong area of support, what's to say that a relatively weak one compared to that will end up standing? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of point that I'm trying to make right now for why I don't think that 38k is the savior for Bitcoin. And that would mean potentially falling back into this range or down to the very low $30,000 range as well, potentially for some kind of final low. I think it's way too early to be talking about that right now, but for now, where this market is, if we don't get a real bounce and manage to get some nice moves up above 42 relatively soon, we could be in a lot of trouble. We've been in this position many times before, so for now, until the support level is lost, I'm not actually that worried about it. It's just back testing support in an absolutely beautiful way. If we take a look at momentum, it's kind of closing up. We can't really gather much information here. Maybe still acting as, well, it can't be support because we're below it. It may be acted as support right here, but nothing beautiful. I guess the elephant in the room though really is this 値·�·𝗔𝗡𝗔𝗓 cloud right here. I mean, let's be honest, this is not a nice cloud at all. It's a very, very large cloud, and I think it could stop Bitcoin from rising up at least quickly, if not entirely. So this is something to keep an eye on, but we haven't hit it yet. So we can still rise. I mean, we can just trade dead sideways until the beginning of March, first week of March, second week of March, or pump up to 44, 46, 47. I don't think that's happening anytime soon, but 42.5, towards the end of this month, over the next week. These are some of the areas that this Ichimoku cloud could turn into a little bit of resistance for Bitcoin, but that still allows for some sort of a rise up before that happens. So that's what I'm looking at right now. Altcoins doing surprisingly well during this bloodbath, in my opinion. I'm very, very interested in Cardano. It's now at the very bottom of its range. It always bounces off this level, so definitely looks nice. Take a look at this with this green box and blue line. Very, very nice area that it's at right now. I'm not comfortable going long on this because of the ridiculous wicks. There is just no way to trade this safely from what I'm seeing, but still looks nice for a spot buy for sure. If I was a spot trader and I just bought altcoins to hold, now is a phenomenal time for Cardano in my opinion. Although if it loses the $1 area, then we'd be looking at a crash of like 60% at least, in my opinion, if we do lose this level in some substantial way, with some real daily closes, for example. That would be absolutely horrible, but let's not go there because we don't need to have that discussion quite yet. And I think that's what a lot of this analysis, is falling on right now, is that, look, we're right on the edge. A lot of bad things could happen, but they haven't happened yet, and I want to stay cautiously optimistic just for the minute, watching how this goes, watching how we interact with these support levels. I don't actually think the market is that weak right now, but it's obviously very, very clear that weakness can seep in, can creep in very, very quickly indeed. Ladies and gents, if you enjoyed this video, you want to see what the trading side of all of my analysis looks like, these are the steps to join 4Fly's VIP. Click on the first link in the description down below. Then it's going to take you to my 4Fly Gold channel that looks exactly like this. Click on my name at 4Flies at the bottom of any post inside of 4Flies Gold, and then send message to ask me how to join VIP, and we'll give you all that information right now after you watch this video. This is the only way to reach out. Don't search for me in Telegram and stuff like that. It's only impersonators and scammers. Don't reply to comments that aren't from me. I'm verified on every platform. Please don't get scammed. Very, very important note. This is the channel, of course, where I share every single detail on every trade that I make, from my planning phase to my execution phase to how I'm going to be changing that trade, or and so on, how I'm going to be adjusting my take profit or my stop loss and stuff like that, all on the fly. You guys see it all happening right now as I'm in the trenches with you all as well. So very, very exciting stuff indeed if you want to jump inside of VIP. You already know the deal with Bybit. This is the only exchange I use, only exchange I've been using for years, pretty much. And if you want to jump inside, they are linked down below. I love them to bits. You must check them out. Depending on where you are, of course, you will need a VPN, and that is not for me to say. So there you go, ladies and gents. Hope you have enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.